Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. Mr. Chairman, monuments are a very important part of our culture, serving as a reminder of our history and memorializing significant historical events. There's probably no better example of a monument than the large stone obelisk that's constructed out on the mall that we affectionately call the Washington Monument. Not long ago, I visited the USS Arizona Memorial constructed in Pearl Harbor. These cherished monuments and memorials exemplify the dictionary definition of a monument: a statue, building, or other structure erected to commemorate a famous or notable person or event. The fact that we have living, dynamic forests that are now being designated as monuments should raise a flag in of itself. We have a process to establish parks, reserves, and wilderness areas, and the fact that we're designating forest land, which is again living and dynamic, a monument, causes me great concern. It tells me that we're going around the process and using something that was never intended to set aside forest land to do just that in the Antiquities Act. Mr. Marshall, given the challenges facing forests in Oregon and California, including drought and insects like bark beetle, what will the elimination of basic forest management techniques like just even thinning do to the forest health and resiliency?
The pace and scale of the forest management now is on a pretty slow path, and the expectation to overcome all the issues associated out there are directly correlated to your question. I mean, we are seeing some minor progression in the use of forest restoration activities, but the forests are definitely in decline. And from a health perspective, they are overstocked. They need treatment. The treatments can be done in a collaborative way where the processes, get a lot of support. We never can please everybody, and certainly in some of the areas we operate, it is more difficult, Southern Oregon being one of those. Most of our timber sales are under protest, and they typically, the ones from federal lands, and they typically take a long time to go through a major litigious process. But in the absence of the restoration activities, because of the absence of fire, we definitely have a big backlog that we have to take care of, or we're going to see more catastrophic fires at a pace we're not all happy with.
A monument is put in place to preserve. That's why they're usually built out of stone and metals. But a forest is dynamic, and it's changing. If we don't protect forest health, you talked about catastrophic wildfires. What could essentially happen to these monuments if we get a catastrophic wildfire?
The wildfires in this particular region can be extremely large. The monument could burn. I mean, it's not unrealistic to say that the entire Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument is on a trajectory to potentially burn. And so
we could have a nice charcoal landscape to memorialize.
We have several 100,000 acres in this area that are already that way.
What would be the economic impact to local communities and small businesses if a catastrophic wildfire came through the National Monument?
We have examples right now where the catastrophic wildfires have been devastating to the communities.
Do you see a lot of tourist activity, people going to look at the charred landscape?
Not a lot, no. Yeah. Less, for sure.
Right. So long after a catastrophic wildfire has been extinguished, communities can experience the negative consequences of the wildfire for years to come, including flooding, mudslides, insect infestations, disease outbreaks, and land and water degradation impacting communities and sensitive species alike. What impact will this designation have on federal land managers' ability to mitigate for the consequences of catastrophic wildfire?
There has been, on federal lands, little to no reforestation efforts, so the lands go into kind of a natural process of restoring themselves. But it is a very, very long process, and the process is something that is not necessarily acceptable and really has a negative economic impact to the long-term sustainability of these rural communities, especially where they produce jobs in the forest products industry.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.